We're going to start with talking about the spoilers from Oath of the Gatewatch, and then we're going to do a legendary cube draft, and I'm going to go a little bit into the details of what I've seen the pros on that. But first, let's start with Oath of the Gatewatch. 3 cards were spoiled, and they've basically been confirmed. The art on all of these cards is nowhere to be found on the internet, and Wizards is kind of avoiding, which is the normal process, but 2 of the major spoiler sites said that they have inside people that basically said these are real. And there's a couple different things. The first thing we're going to talk about is wastes. It's the most important card. Now there's 2 different theories about what this could be that I'm basically entertaining. And the first thing is this is a 6 basic land. Now there's something really, really important going on here. People are talking a lot about domain and all this other stuff. This is a basic land, but I think where it would say the type wastes, it's not there. So we're not sure if the type line is basic land wastes or just basic land. If it's just basic land, it means it can be gotten with things like rampant growth. You can have any number in your deck, but what it doesn't mean is that it would increase domain. So like your travel flames wouldn't do it for 6 unless it said basic lands waste, because it says for each type of mana you have. If you have a snow mountain and a mountain, your domain spells still only count the mountain once because the type is mountain. So if this is basic land typeless, then it doesn't count towards domain. But it is a basic land you can run any number of. Will work for EDH. You can run colorless sources, etc. Now there's 2 thoughts on what kind of mana waste produces. Either, as you can see in Kozilek up here, and on a mirror pool, which we'll talk about in a second, it's 8, and
wastes.
We'll call it weird. We'll just say it's weird mana for now. You can say weird, Eldrazi, there's a lot. We'll say weird mana for to be succinct. And it's 8 weird. Now, thought 1 is that weird is its own symbol of mana and has to be paid with weird. So you'd pay 8, and then you'd either tap 2 wastes or a land like Mirror Pool, or if creature sources produce wastes, then you get it by using this specific type of mana, which is in another color, but is a special type. And can only be paid with that type. So that's one of the different thoughts, and that produces wastes. The other one is that it's colorless only, so that you could pay 8 red mana and 2 colorless from any source. So you could use a colorless land, like Caves of Koilos could tap for its colorless source. You could pay 8 red mana, and then you tap 2 Caves of Koilos to play Kozilek. So it either operates a lot like snow mana or its own kind of mana. Either one of those would work thematically and mechanically for this. I'm hoping that it's any colorless source. I think that would be a little bit more elegant. But we do see the symbol here on the wastes, which may kind of...
Well, and on the mirror pool.
And on the mirror pool. Now remember, if this is just any colorless source that's non-colored, so for the mirror pool you could play 2 colorless and any colorless source. I think the thing that in the favor of it standing for you have to use a wastes type of mana, whether it's from wastes or mirror pool, is that it doesn't say that anywhere in reminder text, but this is 2 mythics. And mythics don't usually have the spoiler text. So the spoiler text could have the little diamond symbol, and it could say next to it, this can only be played by non-colored mana sources, or it could say this must be paid with wastes, weird mana, whatever. Okay. So either one of those could work, but it's a really big deal. We'll find out more when the spoiler comes out, if it is wastes, basic land type waste, which would be really important for like domain decks will get a lot stronger. Let's say you're playing Modern Zoo, you could actually run a single wastes and get it. Now, interestingly, fetch lands don't get wastes. There's no fetch lands to do that, so it would make it much harder in older formats to do that.
Unless they made a cycle of fetches for wastes.
They probably won't, because it's not necessary either. There's a lot of room to grow with wastes. Later we could have colored sources of wastes if they operate with the little weird mana having to be paid with the weird symbol. You could have a weird mountain. But if they're just colorless only symbols, then obviously that can't be the case, right? Because they have to be paid with colorless. We'll see where that pans out a little bit later. If you guys have any thoughts on this, you guys can send us a message. If you're not here in chat right now, then at mobiuspick@gmail.com. We always read that kind of stuff and see what your guys' thoughts on it is. It's really interesting. We're going to talk about Kozilek and Mirror Pool a little bit more, because we talked about the 2 different kinds of mana. And either way that the mana plays out, whether it's a colorless only source or specific to weird mana, either one will work out. Kozilek is 8 weird for 12/12, legendary. When you cast him, you draw cards up to 7. So if you have 1 card in hand, you draw 6. If you have 7, you draw 0. If you have 0, you draw 7. And he has Menace. So he's a pretty big threat there. You get a good on-cast effect.
So what is Menace? Do we know yet?
Yeah, that's cast to be blocked by 2 creatures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the exciting part is that he has discard a card with converted mana cost X, counter target spell with converted mana cost X. And we saw that on one of the blue pitch spells a while back. And it's a powerful effect. You can cheat him into play, and you can use that effect. You can discard colored spells to that as well, right?
Also note that it says X, not X or less.
Yep, it has to be X exactly. So if you have an explosive vegetation to play him in your green ramp deck, which I think is where he would fit in standard, is get rid of your hand by playing ramp spells, get your Kozilek on board, and then once you cast him, let's say he's the last card you cast or you only have one, you have a full grip because you cast him, and you can use all those spells to hold him up and keep him safe. Good removals only at certain kind of converted mana costs. There's not that many.
3, right?
3 and 5 right now. There's the Delve Spell, Murderous Cut, and the other one. He's not invincible or anything, but he does protect himself well and all that kind of stuff. So he's powerful. I'm not sure how many times you'll get to cast him, but I think that in Green Ramp, it's definitely doable. And if we get more good ramp, it'll make it easier too. He actually rewards you playing a ramp strategy. The other really cool one is Mirror Pool, which I think is actually the strongest card that we have here. It's a mythic land, always a plus. Enters the battlefield tapped to kind of offset how strong it is. It taps for a weird mana, which kind of also goes back to Kozilek, or the weird mana symbol being its own thing, not just a colorless source. But we'll see. We're not sure either way. And you can pay 2 and a weird, sacrifice it, copy an instant or sorcery you control, and choose new target. So it's a fork. That's very powerful. It's expensive but powerful. And the second part is you can pay 4 and a weird, sacrifice it, and put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of a creature you control. First, that's any creature, including legendaries. So if you have a Kozilek out and they go to kill your Kozilek, you can make a copy, and they can kill the regular, or you'll legend rule it actually, but the other one will be sacrificed, but you'll have another copy, which is powerful. These abilities might seem kind of expensive, but it's on the land. I mean, as we've seen with creature lands and other land type of or spell effects on lands, it doesn't matter what the cost is usually. It's very powerful.
And I thought they weren't going to make mythic lands, but they seem to have done that.
They do every once in a while.
There's been one in the first, right? Rise of the Eldrazi, there was one.
Yeah, and I think this is appropriate to that. First of all, I don't think you would run 4 into the battlefield colorless lands in most decks. You might. It might end up being there
Probably
or not.
not.
But yeah, but you would definitely run a couple if you can fit them in. I do like how this matches up with Battle of Zendikar Battle for Zendikar having these really cool lands. Now, right now we can't play them because we have Khans, and Khans has all of these 4-color, 3-color decks, and it's incentivizing us not to play the cool colorless lands, but to play the powerful creatures. But that's going to rotate out. So when that rotates out, we have dragons and origins, and this Battle for Zendikar in the next block. I expect it not to have multicolored cards, so you'll have really good mana with the fetches, or with the you'll have just the battle lands. So you have decent mana, but you'll be more incentivized to play these powerful colorless off-color lands. Just like we have the cycle of uncommons, some of which are good and some of which are moderately okay. Right, the black one that sacrifices a creature seems powerful. The green ramp one seems okay. Like, they'll see more play. Mirror Pool will see more play. I don't expect to see it a lot of play before, just because you have to have the colored manas. But after that comes around, I will think that all of the colorless mana sources or single colored kind of cards will have a time to shine. Something you have to remember is that Khans block is on the set is the tail end of the big set sort of model. So we had more sets in it. So the cards had to be more powerful. You have to have strong cards to stand out in a bigger set. But Battle for Zendikar is on the beginning of the small sets, where we're just going to have 3 different sets in rotation at a time. So the cards overall will be weaker, but they'll see more play. It's like when you play Limited, right? I mean, there's plenty of cards you'd never play.
I thought it'd be 3 or 4, right?
It goes to 6. So what happens is when it's 3,
block of 2, block of 2, block of 2.
Yep, block of 2, block of 2, block of 2.
And then the whole block falls off before we get one more, so it'll be 5 or 6.
It'll rotate to 5 to 6, 5 to 6, 5 to 6, which is
a
good.
lot more consistent.
Yeah, and what that does is it lets weaker, smaller niche cards get played more. Like I was saying,
which is good and bad, because I mean, if I play Modern, then how many more cards are they going to print that I actually play? Well,
the good part to that is, for Modern, most of the cards you play tend to be the cheaper cards, and they'll continue to print cheap cards. And I think it actually benefits you more in that, okay, let's say you have a 9-block set. If you print Lightning Bolt, what's the likelihood you're going to have a threshold of burn cards that makes Lightning Bolt too powerful with all of those other cards?
That's a good point. So they might reprint stuff that they wouldn't normally reprint.
Right, because let's imagine you have one Lightning Bolt in Standard of that level of power, and that the next best card is something like a 2-mana burn spell or a 3-mana burn spell. It's fine. But you don't want to be in a situation where you have Lightning Bolt next to Shock, next to Incinerate, because that's a lot of powerful burn. Even though the Shock and Incinerate aren't as good, they pair up with the Lightning Bolt to be too good. But now, in like this new world, you can have a card like Mirror Pull, which doesn't have to worry as much because it's a smaller 6-block set. You don't have to worry about the power level getting out of crazy or anything like that. So,
and I guess every once in a while this might cause them to really mess up though, and then that card will just be banned.
well, I mean, the other good part, let's say they do print a card that's a little too good. It's only a couple sets there, and the support will
it'll
rotate.
just get banned in Modern though, probably.
Oh yeah, and that's fine. I mean, Treasure Cruise. It's okay to make mistakes in Modern because the worst that'll happen is you'll have a block or two's worth of card sets. You have like a year where a card dominates it, which is okay. They banned Treasure Cruise appropriately, and I mean, like, Treasure Cruise was made for a short-term, interesting spike in difficulty and power play. They didn't keep it. It didn't push out other Modern decks permanently, but temporarily, you got to play these really cool blue-red Delver decks. You got to play these cool other temporarily.
Yeah, also in
that's
Legacy.
fine. I think that you'd be at the kind of card level of like Skull Clamp, where they would have to do an emergency ban, but I think they're better about that. We haven't had...
That hasn't happened in a long time.
Jace was the last card they banned during Standard.
Didn't they ban something else besides Jace?
No, just
Jace?
Just Jace and Standard, and that's been many years. They'll continue to have to ban cards in Modern, and that's what the format's there for, is a regulated Eternal format where they control how powerful it is. If you want to play an unfiltered, powerful set, that's what Legacy is for. And they even banned Treasure Cruise there, but that's just because it was really pushing what they...
It's dominating.
Yeah, it was creating decks where you basically had to play Treasure Cruise decks, and they don't want that. Whereas in Modern, if a deck is 40% of the field, they're going to ban it. Whereas in...
Yep.
It doesn't even have to be that high.
I don't even think Pod was that high, and they banned that one.
I think it had to do with the consistency there. But we can go more on that later. We're about to run the Legendary Cube and get on that. If you guys have any thoughts on any of these super sweet cards that come in with Oath of the Gatewatch, which I'm super excited for what Wastes kind of insinuates will happen. We'll kind of see more of that as it unfolds. It is a little bit away, but it's fun to think about. Just send us an email at mobiuspick@gmail.com.
I'm super excited for foil wastes.
Oh, Wastes will be very pricey. I expect them actually...
So I hope it's going to be like a common in the set, so that you'll just get one basically in every pack. Or every
I think
pack.
it'll replace all basic lands in this
just
set.
Be wastes.
Yeah.
So, like snow-covered lands did.
Yes.
Or Cold Snap.
So what they'll do to get the production out, because you got to think, these will be needed in Standard, but also in EDH, there'll be high demand for them.
I mean, in my colorless deck, assuming I can use waste for colorless,
you can.
Then I'm going to replace every land except for my ultra colorless producers with waste.
Yeah, and it's
I'm going to build a colorless deck because why not?
It's a basic land, and I expect these to come probably in the fat packs. And
if 40 of them come in the fat packs, then it won't be worth too much.
I think that's their goal, is to make it worthless, just like other basic lands.
Now, I would like a set of foil ones, and by a set, I mean like an EDH set, so like 40 to 50.
That's going to be pricey. I think that
Of foil ones.
I think the regular ones, the regular packs will have full art ones. I think the fat pack will have half art ones.
Ooh, those would be gross. I don't want that.
Right. But like it'll make it more affordable. So you'll maintain moderate price on the pack ones. They'll be like probably settle like $1 each, just like the snow-covered lands mostly hold. And then the half art ones will be whatever it is. The trick is they'll have to reprint them occasionally in supplementary product because eventually they'll go out, but they'll figure it out.
Probably won't do them full art again though, so that's why.
Probably not. They'll probably use different arts too. We do usually see this kind of Bismuth kind of look for Eldrazi-esque things. If you look at some of the older Eldrazi
I wonder if
cards.
there'll be 4 or 5 pictures or if there'll be 1 picture.
We'll find all that later. We can speculate on that and stuff. I do think that it's a good idea to pick up your wastes now, even if it's because it's definitely not something.
It's a good time after about 3 months the set's been out, I think.
Oh yeah.
Now's about the time to pick up full art basics from the last set. So.
And you want to pick those up because they look nice, and if you like the look of them.
And unless you did like me and 6 or 8 years ago bought an unbelievable stack of the Elder full arts.
And they'll eventually go for that too. The speculating size of that's really there. But the thing with waste is, I would be surprised if they're in sets after this. I think they'll be used sparingly. And I think it'll only be used for Eldrazi-esque sets for a long time. If they can keep the Eldrazi as the main enemies, then we'll see it sparingly every couple blocks. If they get rid of the Eldrazi, like, you beat up the Eldrazi and the Eldrazi are done as an enemy, which they may or may not do, they'll find another way to kind of work wastes in every now and again as an interesting mechanic used sparingly.
I find it odd that they're doing this because usually they don't print a mechanic so complicated then a new player couldn't pick it up?
I think it'll be obvious once we have the rules because we basically narrowed it down to two possible things. If you're a new player, we're experienced players.
It either taps for a waste mana, or it taps for a colorless mana that also has the special condition of being waste.
Right.
Or weird, as he liked to call it.
So yeah, the weird mana here, just like we said before, is these diamonds either are represented as can only be used by colorless mana, so you can't use your mountain to pay it, but you can use your Caves of Koilos, tap for colorless, or it means you specifically have to have waste.
That's probably
or waste
the case
type producer.
because of snow-covered mana symbol.
It could be either way. I've heard compelling arguments from lots of people, but it's basically one of those two. And both of those do make sense. Like, neither of those is overly complicated. It is a good way to have a sixth color without actually having a sixth color, which would make a lot of cards very unbalanced.
So for simplicity of printing, why wouldn't they have just printed 10 on there? If it were any colorless mana.
No. It's definitely not any colorless mana. We know it's not. You can pay this with 10 red sources. It's either you can pay 8 red sources and 2 only colorless sources.
Only colorless sources.
Or it's you can pay 8 of any color, any mana you want, and 2 from a waste type source.
Okay.
And that's going to come in when the rules come out. They'll kind of tell us which it is. I could see it as either version. Just like if you imagine if instead of waste mana,
now I'm following you.
Yeah, it said snow. Imagine it was 2 snow. You could pay any kind of snow mana, but it has to be snow. Well, this would be the same thing. It can pay any sort of colorless source. It could be from your elf that taps for colorless, or it could be from any source that made a colorless type mana.
And then 8 of any color or colorless.
Yeah. Or it could be 8 any color and waste type mana, which comes from wastes, mirror pool, probably some. I bet we have a.
There's probably an elf.
Yeah, waste elf, and we'll probably have a couple.
I hope
sources.
it's called waste elf. That would be awesome.
All right,
we're done.
So we're going to go